Okay, I think we're live and running. Hopefully everything works here. Welcome back to another episode of the Matty McCurdy program. Today, another solo episode. And did one of my first solo episodes to kick off 2026. That's been a goal this year. In addition to the interviews and all the wonderful guests that we have on the program, which we'll continue to do. And we'll hopefully have a lot more guests this year and continue to have guests that inspire and uplift and share their experiences and stories that help everyone listening, including myself, learn more about themselves and learn how to become better individuals and hopefully learn how to build a life where you can overcome challenges that come your way, which they always do. But in addition to that, I wanted to add these solo episodes. And so we're going to do one today as well. And of course, you can read a lot of these solo episodes in my weekly email by subscribing. I'll put the link down below. And one that comes to mind is talking about desperation and what it looks like to be desperate. Because I think we all go through phases where we feel really desperate, like we have nothing going for us. And there's a lot of doubt that comes in, especially when we don't feel like we have the experiences or the success to back up the work we're putting in. And so for everyone who's a high achiever, I think we've experienced this, where you feel like you're working, doing everything that you feel like is right, doing all the little things that people tell you to do, all the things you hear people doing. And you're trying to duplicate that and repeat that process, which can be its own kind of comparison as well. And you don't feel like you're getting results. And that could put you in a desperate situation and a desperate place, especially when what you want is something you've been looking forward to. And it's focus. And I think we've all been at parties or social scenes where you kind of get a variety of people there and you see the person who is very nonchalant, very chill, very just there. And then the person who's trying really hard to get attention, to be noticed, to be seen. And which one do you really like? Which one do you prefer to be around? Personally, I like the person who is being a little more chill and nonchalant, not necessarily being the loudest. But a lot of people, sometimes it seems like are attracted to that person who is putting themselves out there. But it is obvious when someone's trying too hard. It always feels a little bit off. I think everyone's been there and seen that. And that moment, seeing that, I was at a party recently, especially with the holidays. And it got me thinking about how life comes in seasons. And sometimes we get so fixated on the current season we're living in. And we're looking to grow into that next season of life, right? We get fixated on what we're trying to achieve, whether that's a promotion or a relationship or making more money, whatever it is. We get hyper fixated on trying to reach that next chapter. And I think that's where a lot of this desperation comes from. I talked about in the beginning, when you're so focused on achieving a certain outcome, that's when we start to desperation. Now, one thing I want to point out, and I think it's easy to excuse this for slacking. Like I said at the very beginning, you have to be doing what it takes. You've got to be doing the work. You got to be putting in the time and giving it our best. If we're not doing those basic, simple things, if we're not leading ourselves into that, then none of this really matters, right? If you're not working towards it, then you don't deserve to be there. You need to be putting in the time. But truthfully, when I sit back and I find myself really feeling desperate and feeling that stress of desperation, I boil it down to two things. A, I haven't put in the work or done what's required, or at least not consistently, to have that result or that outcome. That's the first one. And I think everybody really has to check themselves and look at themselves honestly in the mirror and go, have I done what's required to get what I want? I see this person online. I see this person hustling. I see this entrepreneur and I see the results they're having. I want that too. But have I done what they did? And sometimes we don't even know what that entails, right? We're guessing, and that could be hard as well. The second option, if it's not A, right? If it's not the first one, if it's not that we haven't done the work, we have done the work, then it's potentially that work is in motion, and we just need to be patient and let it play out. Sometimes we've done all the right things. We just have to consistently keep doing it so that people can hear us, people can see us, or even better, we may have reached out to all the right people and they're working in the background trying to make the decision. I've had that happen multiple times, especially in business meetings where you're trying to, let's say, finance one of your businesses, or you're got a cool idea that you're working. I've had this happen a few times where I've got a cool idea I'm working on And I go into a meeting with couple individuals, couple administrative individuals who have that decision-making power. And I share with them what the idea is, what we're working towards, what the goals are, how much it's going to cost, X, Y, and Z, and what their involvement needs to be to make it happen. And I'm really excited about it. I'm eager to make things happen. I'm eager to take the steps to get to where we're trying to go. And then it's silence, right? Silence for a couple of weeks, maybe a month, maybe 2 months. And I start wondering, I'm like, why aren't they getting back? Did I say something wrong? Did the presentation not go well? Have I not done enough work? And in reality, what I need to realize is that if it's going to happen, it will happen. I've done everything I can. If I've done my best, right? That's the precursor. If I've done everything I can do, if I've tried my hardest, if I've done my best, I have to put it out there and realize that it will either succeed or it will fail, or it might be somewhere in between. But I can't get so hooked on making it happen that I become desperate, right? Because I got to realize maybe that just wasn't the right person. Maybe it's not the right fit. If I've done everything I can, it could just be it's not the right time. And when you realize that and you start leaning on the fact that you've done everything you can, now you got to put the rest into action, let it happen. I think a big burden is taken off our shoulders, and it puts us in a place where we can be confident. We can be confident in what we've done, and we can roll with the punches and the setbacks much easier. Especially in those meetings where I've sat down with individuals and I've pitched them on the business idea, what we're working towards, how much they're going to need to invest, X, Y, and Z. And let's say the pitch went really well, and in a lot of cases it did, and they still didn't want to do it, or they didn't follow back up, or they didn't, it just wasn't the right fit. At first, I would get really discouraged and wonder why wouldn't it work? What did I do wrong? And eventually, after several of them, you realize quickly it's not necessarily something you've done wrong. Yes, you can continue to perfect and tweak and execute a little bit better. I think every time you do it is a rep. But if at a certain point you've done all the reps, right? You've really dialed it in, and you have. And you have to realize sometimes it's just not right. It's not the right fit. And you may not know the reasoning behind that. And that can really eat at you. But if you take the stance, I like to call it, measured apathy. I think being apathetic or having this I don't care attitude, I think that it can be taken too far, but at a certain level, it's needed and it's necessary. You have to do your best, and that's where you have to care. But then after you put it out into the world, you have to not care as much. Right? Every time I get online, I post or I share this podcast, I've done the work to be ready to share. Once I post it, I can't care what happens at that point. Because when I do, you start to lose your confidence. You start to worry about other people's opinions, the results, the outcome, and you stop focusing as much on the journey and making it happen. And that's when discouragement sets in. That's when desperation sets in. And at the end of the day, you are not going to perform or operate at your best self when you're desperate. I think you hear this a lot with actors and actresses, people in that industry, because they have this desire to become famous or receive validation or get into this big role or this movie or whatever it is, right? To get this acknowledgement. And we have a culture of watching movies and seeing celebrities and seeing all these people that we admire. And if you're in that industry, and if you're in that space, I'm not necessarily in that space, but if you are, you have this desire to become that. And anything but that is not what you're going for, right? So people, I think, become seriously desperate because they're trying to achieve this role or this outcome, and they're willing to do anything. Right. And that's where you see people get compromised, or you see people make maybe choices that they look back on and wish they hadn't because they were desperate to get that outcome. And they were willing to basically sacrifice whatever it was and maybe not do the things that they wanted to. And I think at some level, you have to do what you got to do to make something happen. But I don't think you act out of a place of confidence when you are desperate. And you see this a lot of relationships as well. I'll give an example. There's been plenty of times where if I was super interested in the individual I was chasing, and maybe I felt like they were out of my league, or maybe I didn't necessarily feel confident in myself, like I could pursue them, and maybe they gave me some attention. In this case, there's many times where that would happen. I would get super invested, and it was obvious that they didn't necessarily care as much. I was just another guy talking to them. And so because I had decided that that's something I desperately wanted, then I was constantly thinking about it. I was constantly overthinking it. I was worried and overanalyzing every text, every communication, every conversation. And I was no longer acting out of a confident place where I was being my best self, nor an attractive version of myself. And therefore, it didn't work out because no one's going to want to get with someone who's unattractive and who's being a simp or whatever it's called, right? You need to be confident, you be acting your best self, and that's what's going to attract the right type of people into your life. And so that's really my biggest piece of advice, I guess, in this episode is act out of a place of confidence, not desperation. And don't worry so much about the outcomes of what you're working towards. Be worried more about the journey. I think we are so hyper fixated, and we're becoming a society that's hyper fixated on the outcomes and on the results. I think a big part of that is due to social media. I think a big part of that's due to just the access of information that we have a lot of times because of online. And we rarely see all the steps, all the work, all the effort that went into the success stories we see. We just see the outcome and the success. We see Amazon, this massive company with all, billions and billions of dollars. Jeff Bezos, the owner or founder, I guess not an owner anymore. And we wonder, how can we be that person? How do I get that? And the truth is there's years and years and years of him working tirelessly to make that a reality and dedicating his time and efforts and working. And so we need to become obsessed with the journey and working through all the steps that it takes to get the outcome and become confident and gain the experience that brings confidence doing that. And those outcomes will come over time. If we're doing our best work all along the way, we will attract the right people into our lives and the right business connections, the right partners, the right relationships that are going to fuel our success and get us where we need to go. But we have to trust that's going to happen, and we have to be willing to do the work that it takes to get there. So act out of a place of confidence, do the work, gain the experience. It's a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it. And you'll get the success and the outcomes you're looking for. It just takes time and effort. Anyways, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you for tuning into the podcast. Hope to do more of these solo episodes and share insights that I gain each and every week. And hope to hear more from you guys as well. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.